For those of you that don't know, this is officially Mike's last week on Sports Talk Philadelphia. And unfortunately, the Eagles couldn't keep up the celebratory mood this past weekend. But Mike is ready to be talking about them anyway. We're going to get into the Eagles, the Flyers, and also some Big Five college hoops on this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. As always, I'm your host, Aidan, and this is our last episode of the fall semester for the 2023-2024 school year. As always, I've got a full panel with me. Starting on my immediate left is my co-producer, Shane Nolan. Shane, how are you doing?
Doing good.
And then we got John Freeman in the middle. John, how are you?
Aidan, great.
It's great to have you on. And, of course, our celebratory honor, Mike Holden. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm great. Ready to criticize the Eagles one more time on this show.
Yeah, we haven't had to do that in a while. It's been a little bit. Yeah, this definitely brings back some vibes from a couple of years ago. So yeah, as Mike said, the Eagles did not look great this past weekend. Huge game against the 49ers, and it just felt like they kind of didn't show up. They lost 42-19. Jalen Hurts, pretty good game. 26 of 45, 298 passing yards, 2 total TDs. The team only had 46 total rushing yards, with Jalen Hurts having 20 of them. A.J. Brown, great game, 8 receptions, 114 yards. Devontae Smith, also pretty good game, 9 receptions, 96 yards and a touchdown. So Mike, we're going to start with you. What was your biggest takeaways from this game?
Yeah, I think what really, obviously there's one word. They did get embarrassed. This was a game that, if they won, they really would have solidified themselves as that 1 seed. And it would have been pretty much over. The 1 seed would have been locked up. It would have been pretty much impossible for them to even have a chance to get the 1 seed, but they didn't do it. Those first 2 drives of the game where they came up with field goals, I think really set the tone, because those are, especially that first drive, getting that in the end zone really sets it especially against a team like the 49ers. But when you get 2 drives that just stall in field goals, it really just sets it. It doesn't get you going right away. And Brock Purdy and the offense, it took them a couple drives, but they got it going and they torched our defense.
Yeah, and John, that start that the Eagles had where they got up 6-0, it really felt like this was going to be a little bit of a different game, getting in the red zone twice when they've really struggled to do that early in drives to start games. And they just couldn't finish, like Mike said, and it really felt like that did kind of set a tone. But unfortunately, the game was still close at halftime, and after that, it sort of just got away from them.
Yeah, the game was definitely close at halftime, but just to get a quote from Nick Sirianni, he said, "We didn't coach good enough, and we didn't play good enough." He also said that they got good players, and they have good coaches as well. But that's kind of like the cliche answer that you expect. I want to say that, for the Eagles right now, they're obviously a team that's still contending in the NFC, and they're still a team that you can expect the best from. But the issue really is the secondary. I've said it time and time again on this show. Whatever team has the best secondary, is going, further in the playoffs. And I feel as though, like, the secondary with the Eagles is just deplorable. Brandon Graham didn't have his best game, And then we just have a report from Isaiah De Los Santos from Section 215 that Justin Evans, a safety for the Eagles, is out as well for the season on injury reserve. So there are so many issues with that secondary and with that defense that, hasn't been addressed, and strategies just haven't been implemented, for progress to be made.
Yeah, that defense definitely looked banged up and not great on Sunday. They allowed 314 passing yards and 4 total passing TDs from Brock Purdy. Hassan Reddick did have a pretty decent game, 3 tackles, 1 sack, but the rest of the defense also allowed 196 rushing yards. And Mike, like John was saying, this defense is beat up. And yes, they're bringing in Shaquille Barrett, which will be a huge addition to that defense. But it does feel like that they are lacking a little bit that punch that they had last year.
Yeah, they're getting beat up, but I also kind of want to go back to the offense a little bit, because they're not doing them any favors, because some of these games they're keeping them on the field and they're getting run down. And it goes back to the play calling with Brian Johnson. And again, we're going back to 2 years ago, not running the ball. They had a sign outside NovaCare about running the ball, but that that translates to your defense because they're just so gassed. I mean, you saw that in the Bills game, not so much in this game, but like John said, we're banged up, and I think we're 31st in passing yards for our defense. So our secondary is just, it's not good, and I think when you look at linebacker play too, I mean, we lost guys last year like T.J. Edwards, Kazir White, and we didn't really think that would be a big deal, but it's really proving heavy right now. And I mean, we were relying on Kobe Dean. He's been hurt all year. We signed Shaq Leonard, so hopefully that can give us something. But yeah, this defense, something needs to change. Something needs to change because we're 10-2, but it really feels like we're 6-6.
That's right, Shaq Leonard. Shaq Leonard, that's right, yeah. But yeah, John, when you look at it that way, their Eagles are struggling to run the ball. They're struggling to stop the pass. It really looks like that this is the team that was kind of struggling 2 years ago, and at that point, Nick Sirianni gave over the play calling. Do you see a situation where Nick Sirianni maybe takes back some of the play calling on offense?
He said he wouldn't. He said that, he could have coached better, but he's still sticking to the plan. So that's something he said in the press conference after the game. Let's talk about Brian Johnson, offensive coordinator, who's actually overseeing these plays and them being called. There are rumors that, the Eagles aren't good with making plays on the fly. So, when they move in the motion right before the snap, they're not very good at that. And so, obviously, a player of Jalen Hurts' capacity is used to that, being at Oklahoma, being at Alabama. But other players aren't used to that. And so that's kind of an issue. Making, adjustments on the fly is something they're not comfortable with, and it's evident on the field.
Yeah, when you look at the standings, the Eagles are still up there, like we've been saying. The loss does hurt their chances of winning the NFC East, but right now they're still a game up on the Cowboys. They're several games up on the Giants and Commanders, so it is a very good sign in that case that the couple of these teams below them are struggling. But again, you've got the 49ers right on the Eagles' tails. Cowboys are right there. The Lions are still there. So, Mike, it is now without loss way more competitive than it looked even last week.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes this game even more important, even though realistically, if the Eagles do lose this game, I mean, it's still not, the division is still so close. I think we'll be tied with the Cowboys, and then the Cowboys have a really hard schedule to end the year. I think they got the Bills, the Dolphins, and then the Lions, and we have the Giants twice and the Cardinals. So not looking ahead, but even if we lose, we're still in good shape. But at this point, I think we need to win to prove to people that we're still the Eagles and not this, we're a 10-2 juggernaut and not the team that we look like against the 49ers. Because, I mean, frankly, we're just not getting the respect anymore. And, I mean, we're used to that here in Philadelphia. We've heard it all year, but we need to come out Sunday night. It's prime time, and we just need to go to Dallas and win and just play much better than they looked. And I do have confidence. I hope Jalen's healthy. I hope everybody's just healthy enough, and hopefully we get Goddard back too.
Yeah, there was also a schedule change for the Eagles. They were the first team ever to get flexed from a Sunday game to Monday night because the scheduled Monday night game between the Chiefs and Patriots just would not have been good. And when you look at it that way, John, that's going to be a very tough game. Obviously, the Dallas game's coming up, but that will be a tough part of the schedule as well, way tougher than it was supposed to be.
And just to go back to the Dallas game, Dallas coming off 4 straight wins. If the Eagles don't get their act together, especially in the defense, in that secondary, they're going to let up about 30 points against Dallas. And it's going to be embarrassing. I mean, CeeDee Lamb absolutely destroyed the Eagles' defense in the last encounter. So definitely something that they have to get together, the secondary, put heads together, and just find a solution. Obviously you're missing, one of your safeties. And like Mike said, the defense is just breaking apart. They just have to get it together back there, man.
Yeah, when you look at the way they played against the Cowboys, they won by 5 points in Week 9, so they do have that advantage on them. So, Mike, when you look at it that way, yes, they didn't play well. And, John, I understand your concerns that they might let up a lot of points. But when you look at it, they still shut down the Cowboys. There's reason to think they can do it again.
Yeah, and, I mean, the only thing for me is going into Jerry's world. That's my only concern. But at the same time, I think the Cowboys are frauds. I know we also got destroyed against the 49ers, but they also, I mean, they got destroyed even more. I mean, I think they're so their true colors. We're coming up in December, January. This is when they always choke. We'll see what happens once they get to the playoffs. But it's important. If they win this game on Sunday, I mean, it's pretty much solidifies at least the 1 seed in the division. With that loss to the Niners, it might be hard to get the 1 seed in the conference, but at least just get that 1 seed in the division so we don't have to hear from these Cowboys fans.
Yeah, so quickly, we've got 5 games left on the schedule. We won't have any of them before we get back from break. So what do you guys think the Eagles will do in their last 5 games? How many wins do you think?
I'm gonna go 4-1. I think they either lose the Cowboys or the Seahawks game.
Same, 4-1, and I'm thinking they may drop the Cowboys game because they won't get it together in time.
All right, I mean, I could definitely see that being issue for them. Traveling to Jerry's World always going to be a struggle, and the Cowboys definitely are going to want revenge after what happened, where they feel like some people feel that they were robbed a little bit from that win. So you know that they're going to want to come back pretty strong. The Seahawks game now be moved to Monday night. It's going to make it a lot tougher. It is nice that they have those last 3 games against the Giants and Cardinals, but you know those are always going to be tough games anyway. We're now going to jump to the Flyers, who have had a great week. Yes, they did lose the first game to the Devils in OT, but at least they got 1 point out of that. And then they won in shootout against the Penguins and then beat them 2-1. So they have looked really, really good. And Shane, it's good to see that they're getting points like this against really good teams in the Metro.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they just had 3 straight games that go into overtime. Maybe a 4th because before that they played the Islanders, which went into a shootout. But I can't remember, there was a game in between that and the Devils game. But I mean, yeah, they look really good, and they're getting it from kind of getting it from the young players right now. Tyson Forster, he's on a 4-game goal streak. He had 2 goals in the Devils game. He scored a goal in the Penguins game where they won in the shootout, and then scored another goal in the and then a 2-1 win against the Penguins when they won in overtime the other day. So yeah, they're looking really good right now.
Yeah, and something really interesting that I saw the Penguins win in shootout is that they not only scored a power play advantage goal, they also scored when they were down a man. And the fact that they've been able to do that now makes them a much more scary team than before when they were only able to score when they were down a man and not when they had the power play advantage.
Yeah, and I said this last week. I wish they could literally decline their power play and go on a penalty kill, because they are so much better on the penalty kill than they are on the power play. I mean, the game against Pittsburgh when they won 2-1 in overtime, the couple opportunities they had, shorthanded, connecting at about 3 breakaways on the penalty kill. He didn't score on any of them, but he had 3 opportunities to score, didn't, and they just looked really good killing the penalty against the Penguins. And I mean, I think it was Scott Lawton who scored the short-handed goal in the shootout win against the Penguins. So yeah, the penalty kill this year is doing really good. I mean, they're just pressuring guys up against the boards and everything. So.
Yeah, and that aggression is very, very good to see. And when you look at their best players on the Flyers, there's a lot of guys that are playing really, really well. Travis Konecny has 12 goals and 7 assists now. Joel Farabee, 8 goals, 6 assists. Cam Atkinson also has 8 goals, 6 assists. And then you got Carter Hart, who's now 7-6-1 with 2.55 goals per game. And Shane, when you look at the way that Atkinson is playing now that he's healthy, that's a really big plus to get him back for the Flyers.
Yeah, it is, because, I mean, yeah, you obviously missed him last year when you missed the whole season last year due to injury. But, yeah, just the way he's playing this year, I mean, he hasn't scored since November 12th was his last goal. So he's not showing up on the goal sheet, but he is ranking up a couple assists so far this year, and that's what you need. And you also need him to get going on the power play, because he could be one of your better power play players and kind of just get the power play rolling.
Yeah, and when you look at the way that Travis Konecny and Joel Farabee have played also really aggressively, they're leading the team in goals. It's really good to see both of them also playing well, and especially Farabee, who was sort of picked to be Claude Giroux's replacement. And maybe he hasn't played as well as Giroux did in his prime in Philadelphia, but he still has played very, very well for the Flyers.
Yeah, no, he is. And just like Cam Atkinson, Joel Farabee was coming off an injury last season, so he wasn't playing very well last season. And John Tortorella even acknowledged that because he was coming off like a hip surgery, I think, or whatever. And it takes a while for you to recover from that. And this year he's showing his strength. He's showing his goal scoring ability, and that's what you need from him. And just for Travis Konecny, he scored 30 goals last year. He's continuing to do that this year. He's on another 30 goal pace this year. Maybe 40 goals. I don't know, but yeah, those 2 are probably your 2 best players right now.
Yeah, when you look at the Flyers standings, it's very clear that their players are playing up to the talent that you're expecting for a team that right now is third in the Metro. You've got the Rangers at first, who are very, very secure right now with their playoff spot. The Hurricanes have been struggling a little bit, and the Flyers are right behind them. But then right behind the Flyers, you got the Islanders, Capitals, and Devils, and the Penguins in 7th, which is pretty surprising. And then you got the Columbus, which they're Blue Jackets, who are really struggling. But when you look at how close the Metro is, it is going to be very, very fun going into December for the first time in a while for the Flyers, just because of how competitive the whole division is.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's not even just the Metro division. It's the whole Eastern Conference. I mean, you don't have the Tampa Tampa Bay Lightning are not playing very well right now. They just got Andre Vasilevsky back. He didn't look good in a couple of his starts since coming back from his injury. You have Toronto, who's not playing very well either. And then you have Montreal, who's kind of in the thick of it in the wild card race. You have Florida, who's right there in in second place in their division. So yeah, it's not just the division for the Flyers, but it's the whole Eastern Conference. Everyone just kind of bunched up right there, aside from the Rangers and the Bruins, who kind of have a big lead for first place in each division. But yeah, the wild card it might come down to the wire. Who knows?
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's going to. And yes, the Rangers and Bruins are right now looking like the best two teams in the East. But you have to remember, last year the Bruins were the top team, record-setting year, and lost in the first round to the Florida Panthers. So anything could happen for hockey just in making the playoffs. And I think that's the Flyers' goal right now, is just to get in and see what happens. With their upcoming schedule, it's going to be a lot easier than the last couple of games where you've got the Coyotes Thursday night, you've got you're traveling to Colorado to play the Avalanche, traveling to Nashville to take on the Predators, and traveling to the capital, Washington, D.C. to take on the Capitals. These games, Shane, feel a little bit easier than the last four that they've had to play.
See, now I'm going to disagree with you there for a quick second, because the Coyotes, they're on a 5-game win streak, and they're playing very well. Their goaltending is playing very well. They just beat the last 5 Stanley Cup championship winners in a row. The first team to ever do that in the NHL. And it's never easy to play against Colorado. I mean, with the altitude in Colorado, the Flyers just never really play them well out there. So it's going to be tough for that. But I mean, the Predators and Capitals, that should probably be an easy game for the Flyers.
Yeah, so the Flyers, we know they've struggled against teams that have losing streaks. Do you expect them to end the Coyotes' winning streak?
I don't. That's kind of difficult. I don't know, because I mean, they obviously lost to the San Jose Sharks, gave them their first win. This is a team that 5 years ago went on a 10-game losing streak, made the playoffs. The year before that, they went on a 10-game winning streak and missed the playoffs. So you just never know with this team, because there is times where they could beat a team on the losing streak.
Yeah, so hopefully the Flyers can keep their winning ways going. We're now going to jump for the first time this year into college basketball for a full segment, and that's because for the first time ever, the Big Five hosted a actual tournament rather than just a round-robin style. And for those of you that don't know, the Big Five is the local college Philadelphia basketball teams and now Drexel for the first time this year. So the semifinals took place last week on Wednesday, and there was a couple great games. St. Joe's beat Villanova down the wire, 78-65, and then Temple beat LaSalle 106-99 in triple overtime. John, I'm going to start with you. You were one of the people on the sidelines reporting for the Temple-LaSalle game. I was also at that game. In my opinion, it's one of the best sporting events I've ever been to.
3 names to mention: Jameer Brickless, Khalil Brantley, and Steve Settle III. I mean, phenomenal performances from all 3 of those players. Miller in the backcourt for Temple as well. Stanford as well in the front court for Temple. I mean, it was probably the best game I've ever been in attendance for. Again, it was the 5th triple overtime game in Big Five history since 1999. So this was a rare occurrence. You know, I really think that this was the game that brought the Big Five back. Jameer Brickless dropped 41 points. I mean, 8 of his free throws were so clutch. He scored all of them in one of the 3 triple overtimes. I mean, clutch player. Khalil Brantley also stepped up. I think, you know, a takeaway from this game is the big difference is that, you know, Temple is used to like playing as a team later down the stretch in games, you know, whereas with LaSalle, you'll see ISOs, you know, you'll see Brantley go for an ISO, you'll see Brickers go for an ISO, or Gill might find his spot. But, you know, for them, it was them like not playing as a team, you know, later down the stretch and just trying to, you know, ISO and stuff like that. I think other teams where they have the advantage over LaSalle is that, you know, they're willing to play as a team later in the stretch.
Yeah, and when you look at the way that Temple played, Mike, in their 2 games before the final day, you had them lose to UPenn and St. Joe's. And yes, they did great in some of the Thanksgiving tournaments. But to have them lose that game, that's a really bad sign for the way that Villanova's been playing this year.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like Villanova can't beat Big Five teams. And, I mean, they got what? They got 6, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I grew up liking Villanova too. Obviously, I'm a LaSalle fan. But like John said, I think this LaSalle Temple game and even that game where Khalil hit the game winner, I think it really is kind of putting the Big Five on the map a little bit. I mean, getting the national attention it deserves because, I mean, Philly is so historical for college basketball, and especially LaSalle. And it just kind of sucks that LaSalle doesn't really get that recognition. I mean, even at the Temple game, all the signs the student sections were putting up, I mean, it just seems like we're still not getting that recognition, but Fran Dunphy has his team playing well. And speaking of him, congratulations for him getting 600 wins. He's such a great coach, such a great guy. But like John said, I think this weekend in general, but that Temple LaSalle game, I think really might have been one of the best games of Big 5 history.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to have a guy like Fran Dunphy who got his 600 win and then went back to Temple where he was the coach there for a while. He was their interim athletic director. So there's so many guys in the Big 5 that have gone to multiple different teams. So that history is definitely there, and it's really cool to see that back. And I think that last Saturday was a great sign for the way that basketball is in Philadelphia. All 3 games were great. Villanova lost to Drexel, which, again, just shocking. LaSalle's last-minute buzzer beater over UPenn. And then you had St. Joe's beat Temple in the final. And, John, the way that St. Joe's has played, like, obviously all these teams are great, but St. Joe's has looked really, really good in these last couple of games. And there's reason to believe they could potentially win the A-10.
St. Joe's, Aidan, is a unit, like a unit that I've never seen before, at this level of college basketball. Rasheer Fleming, Eric Reynolds II, Lynn Gear III, Sean Simmons II, and Billy Lang, obviously their head coach. I mean, when he puts together a unit like that, and he's able to coach them and get them to they have so much talent. So getting them to remain humble and getting them to understand, that sets are sets and ISOs are ISOs, and we're going to operate as a team. Having that team mentality there is something that Lang's really been able to do. I think a player we definitely have to watch out for when St. Joe's plays LaSalle is Fleming. I mean, the guy is sick. He does this thing where he dunks on you, he points right at you. It's so sick. And him and Rokas, I don't know about the matchup. I think Rokas will really struggle defending him. I really hope he's able to move his feet quick enough. Something that Fran Dunphy mentioned in practice the other day was that, Rokas has to do a much better job rebounding and a much better job, moving his feet. So that matchup is going to be one to watch out, and definitely one we have to keep our eyes on as a unit.
Yeah, right now LaSalle and St. Joe's both only have 2 and 3 losses. So it's going to be a very, very competitive game between both those schools when they meet up in the A-10. We're now going to go into the Fast 5. So we've got the NBA in-season tournament that started their quarterfinals. There was a couple of pretty big upsets. Some teams, like the Pacers, make a good run. So, John, what's your biggest takeaway so far of the way that the quarterfinals have gone?
I mean, it's just a chance for teams to showcase really how good they are before we get to, conference finals, Western Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals. Obviously, we have some matchups, Boston versus Indiana, New Orleans versus the Sacramento Kings, obviously. And then we have Lakers versus Suns at Crypto Arena. I mean, these games are pretty much set up for teams to prove how good they are before the actual playoff game. The playoff game starts, sorry. So it's all right, but it's not something to worry too much about. I definitely wouldn't say you should, analyze your team's, stats or whatever, or games too much, so.
Yeah, I will say the Pacers game, though, the atmosphere for that quarterfinal against the Celtics was phenomenal. It felt like a playoffs atmosphere for a young team like Indiana. I think that's really good for a star like Tyrese Halliburton, because right now it looks like the Pacers will be making the playoffs. So I just feel like to get that sort of atmosphere early in the season, it will make you more comfortable when you actually have to go into the playoffs. We're now going to go back to Shane for NHL. We talked last week about the best team in the NHL. What is the worst team in the NHL right now?
Yeah, standings may say it's either Chicago Blackhawks or San Jose Sharks, but to me it's the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, their goaltending this year has just been awful. They sent down their starter Jack Campbell a month ago to the AHL because he just hasn't been so great. And he got pulled his first game in the AHL with 5 minutes in the first period because he let up 4 goals on 5 or 6 shots or whatever. And their defense just isn't that good this year. They're not getting what the productivity they did from Evan Bouchard last year. Darnell Nurse it just looks horrible in front of the net. And Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, they just haven't been what they were last year. I mean, Leon Draisaitl only has 8 goals this year so far, or Connor McDavid only has 8 goals this year. Leon Draisaitl only has 10 goals. So yeah.
Yeah, we're now going to go into college football where the playoff committee again messed it up. And look, I understand that you're going to not put Florida State in because their quarterback's hurt. I would understand that if they had 1 loss, Bama only had 1 loss. Florida State finished undefeated, won the ACC, and did it with their 3rd-string quarterback and held a top 20 offense in Louisville to only 6 points in the ACC championship. Yes, Bama did beat the #1 team in the country in Georgia. They also lost by double-digit points to Texas, had a terrible game against UCF, and needed a miracle to beat Auburn. So if we're going to be comparing schedules here, like, to me, you just got to go with the team that has the best record. And right now, the team with the best record is Florida State. And if we're going to go by hypotheticals and people saying, oh, Florida State will beat or would lose to Alabama, is going to lose to Georgia, then why even play the games? What's the point of playing an entire 13-game season if you're just going to go by what happens in the last 3 weeks? To me, that makes absolutely no sense. If you're going to do this right, you've got to go with the teams with the best record. Thankfully, we're going to be going to more playoff teams next year, so it will not be an issue. And to wrap up, I'm going to calm down a little bit because we are saying goodbye to Mike Holden. Mike has been on. This is your third year now.
Yep.
So, do you have any words that you want to say quickly?
No, it's been a good run. I just want to say thank you. Thanks to you and Shane and Caleb at the time, for welcoming me in 2 years ago as a transfer student. Not really knowing what I wanted to do, but I love talking sports, and you guys welcomed me right on the show. And it's been fun since. And of course, I want to thank Tanya, who's just been a great teacher and leader and mentor. She's one of the best out there. And she might get on you. She got on me plenty of times, but it's worth it in the end. She's just such a great teacher, great mentor. So thanks, Tanya. Thanks, Aidan. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, John. I know this is our first time working together. But it's been a good run, and I'm excited to see what comes after graduation. And but always go Birds, and hopefully good luck to you guys the rest next semester, and hopefully you guys can talk about a Super Bowl win.
Yeah, so before we wrap up, I've got to know, best moment on the show.
I think probably the best moments were when the Phillies were making that run, just the whole month, and we were doing all the trivia and the old school Philly stuff. I think that was just probably one of the most. I mean, you don't get to talk about a Phillies World Series run and an Eagles Super Bowl run really at the same time, and we got to talk about that in one school year, even though they both lost. But I think that was probably one of my favorite moments, just to talk about that, because it's rare that we see a team in the championship.
Yeah, I think that run was so interesting because for a couple of weeks, we were talking about the Phillies potentially not even making the playoffs, and we really didn't know what to expect with the Eagles. So to have all that happen it's definitely special.
No, it was good. I think that was probably my favorite memory, just seeing those teams get in. But obviously, talking with you guys just makes everything better. So it was a good run, and I'm glad that it.
Yeah, Mike, we're definitely going to miss you next semester. Thank you so much for joining us almost every single week. It was great to have you on. Your knowledge of sports is definitely something we appreciated. And that is going to wrap up the first semester for Sports Talk Philadelphia. Thanks so much for watching us the entire first half so far. As always, check us out on social media at SportsTalk LTV, at X and Instagram. Everyone have a great holiday season. We will see you back next year, hopefully, for an Eagles playoff run and the Phillies new season, a whole bunch of other sports. So make sure to keep watching us. Have a great year. And as always, go Birds.
Audio